Hi there, this is Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. With a modern deck I'm going to be playing at my FNM. So like I said, at my local game store, we have a standard tournament at 5 o'clock and then a modern tournament at 8. And I've played the four modern decks that I have right now pretty much to death. Tooth and Nail, Scred, Soul Sisters, and 8 Rack. Those are the current ones that I have completed. And I know that I have all the pieces for this deck in Paper Magic. So I'm going to be playing this bad boy here. I think it'll be a fun, my local game store. I like to play more creative, fun type decks for FNMs. I'm not going to really spike it up and play something like Jund or even Soul Sisters. I've really hung up lately for more fun or more interesting decks or just different decks, because I know that my people at my local game store are probably sick of playing against Soul Sisters, even though I still think it's pretty well positioned in the meta in our local metagame. We have a guy that always runs a UWR control list with Geist of St. Traft, and Soul Sisters eats that deck alive. We have a guy though that does run Ad Nauseum, and that's a pain in the butt deck to play against. And then we have basically a lot of Infect and a few burn decks here and there, but it's pretty typical of what you'd see. So anywho, this is the good old Forbidden Orchard Massacre Worm deck that you try to combo off by creating infinite tokens for your opponent and then using a Massacre Worm. Has some alternate win conditions through Suture Priest, as well as an alternate win condition through the Devil's Play, because you're able to basically add infinite mana when you start to go off with the combo. And so a little bit of the deck tech here is you're going to be running Thought Scours to help put stuff in the graveyard. The combo you want in the graveyard is a Fate Stitcher. A Fate Stitcher says you may tap or untap another target permanent. So it's going to be able to untap your Forbidden Orchard a million times with Intruder Alarm. Intruder Alarm says creatures will untap whenever a creature enters the battlefield. Untap all creatures. So Fate Stitcher, Curious Follower, and Voyaging Satyr will all untap your Forbidden Orchard a million times with the Intruder Alarm. I've had people suggest that I run a way to tutor up, just 100% tutor up an enchantment. But I think that between Commune with the Gods and Wargate, you can get there, because Wargate's really cool because you can search your library for a permanent card with converted mana cost X or less and put it onto the battlefield and then shuffle your library. So the cool thing about Wargate is it can actually go grab whatever you need in this deck. It can go grab the Intruder Alarm, the Fate Stitcher, the Curious Follower, Voyaging Satyr. So if you have one of the pieces, you can go find the other piece. Thought Scour is nice to put your Fate Stitcher in, and that's why we're running just a One of Eternal Witness, because if we accidentally Thought Scour one of our win conditions, we can actually tutor for the Wargate to go get, like if the Massacre Room gets Thought Scoured, you can always just Eternal Witness and get it back. So a 2 of Sylvan Scrying to go get up the Forbidden Orchard. I had the Expedition map in here, but Sylvan Scrying is just a lot more of effective card. Eternal Witness can also get a Thought Scoured Forbidden Orchard. I had Golgari, or the what can I think of the card now? The black-green card that you can search top library for a creature or land. But Intruder Alarm is that necessary that I think Commune just does a better job. So the mana base is all over the place. You're running a bunch of one-ofs, and then some Windswept Heaths and Wooded Foothills are fine. I think this deck hasn't been upgraded since. So mana base is a lot easier now that you can run Polluted Deltas. I think the best card you want is going to be ways to tutor up. It's going to be Windswept Heath for sure, because that's one of your premier colors, but it would be it would be the blue-green lands would be the best ones, but I think it's just fine. We're playing a one of Stomping Ground in here for another source. The cool thing about Forbidden Orchard is it can tap for any mana, but I think that with the fetch lands, you can basically just play whichever ones you have. So you have Polluted Deltas, they'll do fine. They can go tutor up an Overgrown Tomb or a Breeding Pool. If you have Flooded Strands, those all also work fine. It's so easy with fetch lands to tutor the pieces you need. Onto the sideboard, we have Ghostly Prisons just to shut down some aggressive decks. At least put a bit of a clock back on, some time back on your clock before an aggressive deck can kill you. Have another Suture Priest. It's just sometimes just better than a Massacre Worm, depending on certain decks you play against. We have I've thought about putting a Soul Sister in here, but it's just it's unnecessary, like an Arc Champion or whatnot. The Suture Priest will deal damage and can go infinite with the Intruder Alarm. We have a one of Rakdos Charm, which can act as another win condition. It can exile all cards from a graveyard if you're going against a graveyard based strategy. It can destroy an artifact, and each creature deals 1 damage to its controller. So, with the Forbidden Orchard combo, this is another kill condition. Primal Command can tutor up a Wormcoil Engine, or excuse me, a Massacre Worm. It can also tutor up a Thragtusk. Like, you bring in the Primal Commands and Thragtusk versus the mono red decks as their way for you to gain some life. Mana Leaks and Dispel are control cards. Mana Leaks just straightforward. You counter a spell unless you pay 3. Dispel counters an instant spell. Remand is also an effective use of the card here. And I have another Beck Call, because Beck Call is really cool in this one. A lot of times you can just you can fuse them quite easily in this deck because mana is a lot of times not an issue. But Beck allows you to basically say, I can draw into my combo. So if you have, it's like your 5th Wargate. So if you have Intruder Alarm and the Fate Stitcher Forbidden Orchard combo, and you have the Beck Call in your hand, you can basically just cast Beck Call and then put infinite amount of cards into your opponent's control, and then you can draw a card for each one of those, and then eventually it will draw you into a card that you need. Thought about for that case putting in like the Simian Spirit Guide just to add some more extra mana in case that you, I mean, but that's infinite mana for the Forbidden Orchard if you have it, but it ramps it up more. I thought about a few other cards, like, I don't know, even like a Birds of Paradise doesn't seem too bad in this deck because it can ramp you that earlier deck, but between the Cures, Fallers, Fate Stitchers, and Voyaging Satyrs, I think we have our bases covered. So I haven't played this deck in a long time. I don't know how well it's going to perform. I think it's just going to be a nice little fun deck to run at FNM. And I'm open to suggestions on upgrading this. It has been months and months and months since I played this. But Forbidden Orchard's always been a pet card of mine. I've always tried to find ways to make it viable. And I'm even thinking about going back to the Forbidden Artist type deck and putting in like Fesunity. Fesunity is another pet card of mine. This is a card that I'm trying to break. I've been trying to break for the longest time with Modern. I think next week I'll give you a nice little brew, or this week for Gathering Magic. We'll see if we can try a Fesunity build, and with the new Liliana, because it's a very easy way. You get a lot of value out of creatures dying with. So it's I'm thinking about a bug or a Soul Tie, or possibly even a Jund, with Fesunity being the engine to just draw a ton of cards, and then we just have to have ways to net up mana and see if we can get that to work out. Another card that I'm really looking forward to in Modern is to try to with the Herald of Kozilek, because the card just seems bonkers by reducing colorless spells by 1. And then you can put this with the other artifact spells reduced by 1. I think that you can get out some pretty quick cards with it. So we'll have some brews coming up for Modern. I haven't given up on Modern. I think that at the beginning of a new Standard season, it's always fun to brew with the new Standard cards. I think Battle for Zendikar is a pretty juicy set to brew around, but unfortunately it just makes quite a weak set in the metagame, and we are basically playing Khans of Tarkir block right now. It's not... People are really exploiting the ease of having 5 colors, and we have seen some newer brews lately that have been quite effective. But it's not really the problem of being able to brew a deck in Standard. The big problem is it's just so boring going against 5 color good stuff over and over and over again. It's one of the worst, in my opinion, one of the worst aspects or the worst formats of Standard when that happens, when there's no rhyme or reason or synergy between cards. They're just playing good stuff deck. So anywho, I'll let you know how this goes. I'm not going to play this in any playtesting here on MTGO, as I have to get headed to that FNM, have to get headed to swim practice, and then right after to the FNM. So I'll let you know how it goes, at least in my local FNM. This has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.